to make everything really accessible because I used to be a translator. And so I would take things in Spanish and French and put them into English. And the idea is to put it in the source language so it's flowing and easily accessible as if it were originally written in that language. So I like to take complex ideas and scientific concepts and just make them attainable and accessible for folks. So if it's too simple and you've done this before and you've heard it all before, I understand. But I'm also trying to really make it accessible. But also, this is what I want to say too, is I know a few things, but I know you all do too. And so this is going to be interactive, and I will invite you to share some of your thoughts and experiences as we go along. And this is also going to be brief because most of us are biohackers and we want to get to bed early, which is awesome because we want to be in tune with our circadian rhythm. And so I'm going to talk about that a little bit too. But I want to start off by saying I am so thrilled that this retreat is called the Spirit of Nature, because the longer I live and the longer I'm in this alternative health space, the more it's impressed upon me the importance of connection with nature.
Yeah.
You guys, I used to be a fitness professional and yes, a health coach that maybe at the most spent 15 minutes outside a day. I had no idea what I was missing. I would go from getting my kids ready for school, take them to school, go teach my exercise class, pick up food, pick up the kids from school, come home. The only time I had outside was between the drop-offs and the pickups. Do you know what I mean? I just had no idea. And now I marvel and wonder at the beauty of nature and my role in it. And so I feel like a lot of our sickness and dis-ease or disease comes from our lack of connection with nature.
Yeah.
And so I'm thrilled that this retreat has that focus, and I want to tell you a little bit of an experience I had in Ecuador this summer that brought home to me the importance of connection with nature. So I went to hike this volcano called Cotopaxi. Raise your hand if you've ever been to Ecuador. Okay, awesome. So it's a glorious country, and it actually has a lot of volcanoes, a lot of active volcanoes, and I think Cotopaxi is actually active. But the challenge of Ecuador is its climate is always changing, and half the time the mountain is behind clouds, and you can't even see it except during certain seasons. And so I learned a lot about it. I studied about it ahead of time, but there's nothing like seeing it in person, right? Yeah. And there was this guide. I don't remember what her heritage was. I want to say she was Quechua, which is how they like to pronounce it there. But as we were driving to the base where we were going to begin hiking up, she said, she was telling me some kind of mystical stories. And she's like, I don't tell this to everybody, but I feel like you're really open. I was like, yes, I am. So she was telling me some of the lore behind the mountain and all that, and the volcano. And she said, when we get to the place where we're going to begin our hike, I'm going to invite you to do something really unusual. I'm going to invite you to put a bit of the mountain, a bit of the dirt under your tongue. She said, because I want you to, in that way, show respect for the mountain and let it acknowledge and recognize you. And it's a kind of communion of sorts that's going to happen between you and the mountain. And I just thought it was so beautiful. And so me and a few of my companions, we did this, and it was like the mountains parted, and the mountain was like greeting us, you know what I mean? And then the experience was amazing. They had warned me, it's going to be very cold, I guess kind of like here. And so it's going to be very cold, and you really have to bundle up because the winds are fierce, and you're going to be going to a higher and higher altitude, above 14,000 feet, and so you're going to maybe be deprived of oxygen, so pace yourself, all these warnings. And so I took it seriously. I was taking my time. We were hiking up kind of zigzag formation and all this, but it wasn't that cold, and it wasn't that strenuous. And she was like, it's like the mountain is recognizing your respect for it. Not just me, but our whole group, And then when we left at the end of the experience, it's again, the clouds parted, and she's like, it's like the mountain saying goodbye. And I was so moved. And it's not just on those mountaintops when we can experience nature. I live in the city, so I just want to tell you, wherever you are, you can hear birds singing. You can see the seasons changing, or just minute changes in the world around you. Even if you live in Florida and you feel like, all the seasons are the same, or California, there's still changes with the flora and fauna around you. So I want to invite you during this retreat, but as part of our cold adaptation process, to learn to appreciate what nature is offering. And that's one of the things I've learned through cold adaptation. The reason it matters, and I'm going to get to the how-tos in just a moment, but is because the foundation of our health, more and more scientists believe, has to do with our mitochondrial health and our circadian rhythm. In other words, the mitochondria are these tiny little engines in our cells that work more efficiently and have more energy when they get the right input. And it's not just food, though I think scientists used to think it was just food. They get the input from the sun and from the environment around you. And they get kind of revved up so that everything is working better inside of you. And I love what my friend Tommy John says. He's a chiropractor in California. And he says, throw out everything you hear, N equals 1. In other words, experiment on yourself and see how it feels. And so the first experiment I want to challenge you to, because this is what Thaddeus challenged me to, is getting the sun every morning. Getting up within 30 to 45 minutes of sunrise gives your body an opportunity to take in the nutrients that the sun has to give, but also the information it gives you to tell you it's morning, it's time to wake up. You guys, we have to be intentional now because our ancestors, we're not living the same life that they did. They would see the sun when they woke up in the morning. They would hear like a little bird chirping. We have a teapot. But really, they were so attuned to nature. They spent most of their time outdoors. So I'm kind of inviting us to step back in time to do a biohack, if you will, or to do these things to try to mimic ancestral health ways. Because our ancestors were so healthy, and we are suffering with a lot of disease. So again, my first challenge to you is get that morning sun. It'll help set your circadian rhythm. It'll boost your mood. It boosts your energy. It revs your metabolism. It does all these things on a profound level. And my challenge to you is try it for 2 weeks. And if you're like, oh, I'm not a morning person, I wasn't either. You guys, I was a huge night owl. I was like, I guess it's just in my genes. You know, those Cuban people, those Spanish people have dinner at 10 p.m. and then they stay up till 1 partying and then they sleep in. I was like, that's just my rhythm. Well, that might be how they live today. I'm not so sure they lived like that before. So I took this challenge. I started getting up within 30 to 45 minutes of sun, making eye contact with the sun, or at least looking in that direction for 15 minutes, and I never looked back. My husband was shocked. He saw my patterns. You know, it was like, okay, the kids are in bed. I'm going to do laundry. This is my time to get things done. I'll get on the computer. And I would like look at my watch. I'd be like, 1, 2 in the morning. I'm going strong. I'm Superwoman. No, I wasn't. I didn't know that the light from my screen was stimulating my pineal gland and making me think it was midday. Of course I was getting a second wind because I was getting that information. So now, what do? I get the morning sun. I avoid things that interfere with my circadian rhythm. And usually I wear blue blockers. I'm not right now just so you can make eye contact with me. But at night I'm careful to avoid blue light so that I can really be in sync with nature. I get up now without an alarm. I'm a certified morning person and I feel so good and so energized. So I mentioned that blue light can interfere with our health. What other, this is an interactive part of the conversation, what other things disrupt or disconnect us from nature or disrupt our natural environment?
Constant temperature year-round. So like summer, we turn the AC on to make sure it's 70 degrees, and in winter, we turn the heat on to make sure it's 70 degrees, and in our car, we turn the heat on to make sure it's 75 degrees.
That's right. Our bodies don't have to work anymore. We're always acclimating our temperature so that we're comfortable. But when we're that comfortable, our body doesn't have to work anymore. It's like the mitochondria actually get out of practice. I was reading this book called The Mitochondriac Manifesto by R.D. Code. I really recommend it. And in there he says, the mitochondria, just like our muscles, it can happen with muscles too, they get lazy. And so they get accustomed to not having to work. So when you're outside, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm freezing. I can't wait to get inside the house. Now I will stop and give you a little testimony. So literally in the winter, first of all, let me just say, I'm Latina. So I'm meant for warm climes. My DNA is all about the sunshine and the humidity and, you know, all the things that I just am like, bring it on. Bring on, Mr. Sun. I want to get really tan. I don't care. I just love it so much. So my natural inclination was that. And I thought, I hate winter. I'm just going to grin and bear it. And when it's really cold, I'll say to my husband, drop me off right in front of the church. I'll run in, or drop me off right in front of the restaurant. I don't even want to walk from the parking lot to the building, because that's how much I hated winter. That was to my detriment, right? I was too comfortable. And so when I started getting the challenge, again, from Jack Cruz and Thaddeus Owen and other friends of mine, I had to flip my mindset. That's one of the things that will help you when some of you plunge in the waters tomorrow. You've got to go from thinking, I'm scared, this isn't natural, I hate this, to, oh my gosh, this is going to be fun. You have to adopt a kind of, I would say, a childlike posture, and it does become fun because your body is reacting to what your brain and your spirit are telling it. So when I open my door, a lot of times what I do, and I will talk in a minute about the little steps to getting to that cold plunge, but one thing you can do is just a simple shiver walk. Just go outside with one less layer, like I was outside earlier today and it was under 32 degrees with just this. Sometimes I'll go out with a tank top and shorts. I'm not going to go out there forever. Again, I don't want hypothermia or frostbite, but I do it for a time, and I just say, oh my gosh, this is like a waterfall. Oh, this is fun. And when I think that, it becomes that for me. And so it's much more tolerable. And not just that, it's not just tolerable, it's enjoyable. So when we go to get in the ice hole, which is much more extreme, we need to think, oh my gosh, this is so fun, and turn that nervous feeling into excitement. And I know performers like Beyonce and stuff, like they do that all the time. She even had like a code name for herself for a while. She's like, I'm Sasha Fierce. Like so she would take that energy of nerves and translate it into guts and excitement. And then she brought it when she was performing. So we need to be careful to learn to be comfortable in something that's uncomfortable. And part of the key is mindset. Another thing is adaptation. Like they call it cold adaptation for a reason, because you are kind of changing the way your body operates. Instead of being a night owl, I became a morning person, right? But that took a little bit of time. So you want to take your time as you transition to this. And before I get to that, I want to ask you, I already talked about what disrupts us from our environment. One thing is the temperature. I would say another thing is being inside so much. Again, our ancestors were outside most of the time. Anything else you can think of that disrupts our connection with nature?
We're kind of removed from the ground. We're either wearing shoes or we're in a building that's up off the ground, and we rarely get down on it and like touch it.
You're so right. We're insulated. Our shoes are like a barrier between us and the ground. Sometimes we never even touch any bit of nature. So no wonder, I read this book called The Last Child in the Woods, and the author said, kids know on some level, like, oh, we need to care for the environment. We have to care for the environment. But it's almost like an academic exercise. They don't understand that means their own backyard because they're not spending time there anymore. I think another thing that disconnects us is actually our devices. We're kind of immersed in a virtual world, especially in these days, right? We're working online. We're entertained with screens where everything is not tangible anymore. And so we're disconnected with even who we are at times. So my challenge is in the Spirit of Nature weekend for us to dive into nature in a beautiful way, admire it, wonder at it, and experience it with a new mindset. I want to tell you now some of the benefits of cold therapy, and then I'm going to talk to you about the how-tos. So I talked about what the sun does for us, but the cold also revs our mitochondria. They're kind of, if you want to think of it this way, it's a little bit like when you first go back to the gym. Let's say January 1, you make a resolution. You're like, okay, I'm going to start working out. You're not going to get like a huge barbell and start doing, the CrossFit stuff with stuff that's twice your body weight. You're going to start small, right? So you've got to take steps to gear up. And your mitochondria might have gotten lazy, but once they get turned on, they're going to adapt and be excited about the challenge you're giving it. So what will cold therapy do for you? It will strengthen your immune system. It will help your body build more brown fat, which is what children have. This is why kids are like, don't put the sweater on me, Mom. I'm going to go play outside. I don't need a sweater. And moms are like, why doesn't my kid want a jacket or a sweater? They don't need it. They've got more brown fat that's kind of insulating their organs. So as you expose yourself to more and more cold, your body will adapt and give you more brown fat so you're more insulated. Like I go out now and it can be like 32 degrees and I'm like, this is like springtime. I'm like, this isn't cold. I'm hot with his jacket on. Like, it's just really funny. And if I do feel cold sometimes, I'll tell myself, okay, like I'll just breathe and I'll experience it. And sometimes people, strangers who see me, will be like, are you cold? I'll be like, yeah. But it's, again, being comfortable with being uncomfortable. So you'll get more brown fat, your immune system will be strengthened, your ancient temperature regulatory pathways will be kind of getting more flexible, and they'll kind of know, oh, we've got a shift here. We're not going to be in this same kind of homeostasis all the time. Sometimes it's cold, sometimes it's hot. We'll get that experience when we go from the sauna to the cold and back. And it's kind of building the flexibility of our mitochondria and our temperature regulating pathways. It's good for circulation. There are just so many things. I have a little list here, but my favorite thing, I think, is that it really, it's exhilarating. Someone said that at dinner tonight. I think it was Carolyn. She's like, I don't always like the feeling in the moment, but afterwards I feel exhilarated. So you will get kind of a natural high at times from the challenge you're putting before yourself. If you've ever run, and I used to run now and then, I'm not a big runner, but I would sometimes get like chills, or in teaching an exercise class, I'd get chills in the middle of it because it was like my body was so happy and kind of getting that high, right? So you may experience that as well. But be grateful for the opportunity. As many of us said at dinner tonight, we're grateful to be alive. The opportunity to really challenge our bodies in new ways. So again, just talking about the ways, okay, I talked about some of the benefits. There are many more, and you can read some books on it probably, and just asking folks here, you can learn more about it, and I can answer questions in a bit. But there are many things it does for our bodies. And then how do you get into it? Where do you start? I mentioned the shiver walk. So a simple thing to do is wear one less layer, just be outside for 15 minutes. Okay, I have a little story to tell you now. So I remember when my kids were little, and now and then they would get lice. Oh my gosh, lice are like the worst things. They don't really hurt you, but they're these tiny little, bugs on your kid's hair, and you don't want to like put toxins on their head to get rid of those things. So the only thing you can really do is like pick. Anyway, I don't need to make it too detailed. I don't want to get too detailed, but you can pick them off and stuff like that. But it's quite an onerous process. And I hated lice with a passion. And a friend of mine was like, "It's war, Hilda. When you have this lice in your household, it's war. You got to wash everything. You got to put away the toys. You got to strip the beds. All these things." And so, one of our times before I was a cold adaptation queen. I remember I was like, okay, we're not even going to wear coats anymore because the coats could have these little bugs. You just have to pretend they're everywhere, right? This is what my friend told me. So my strategy was like, go all out. And so I would like run. I would be outside. I was like, I'm just going to go from my car to the store without a coat. And I realized, oh, it's not that bad out here. And of course, I'm talking from Washington, D.C. and not a Wisconsin or Minnesota viewpoint. But the point is, you can do it. You can do it. And part of what it builds too, I said it feels good, but it also builds resilience. And I think in this day and age, with so many challenges upon us, especially external societal pressures and shifts with all kinds of perceptions about politics and healthcare and all these things, it helps to be flexible and have resilience so that no matter what comes your way, you're going to be fine. Like some people have asked me, how are you managing in Washington, D.C., whether it's the politics stuff or restrictions or whatever. I was like, I'm free. I was like, I'm living my life. And part of that confidence comes from knowing what I can do. When I go outside on a shiver walk, and it's like 32 degrees, and I'm wearing shorts and a tank, and I'm out there for 20 to 30 minutes, I feel like I can do anything now. So there's a really strong feeling, I think Julie was saying earlier, you kind of get some bragging rights. You do, and it does build your confidence and your inner your confidence and your kind of self-esteem and your ability to accomplish things. So the shiver walk is a great place to start. Again, wearing one less layer or trying some more extreme stuff if you want to. I would suggest not going more than 15 minutes. And how do you know if you've been out too long? It's normal to get a pins and needles prickly feeling. It's normal to feel maybe a little shivery. That's okay. But if you feel like you're starting to go numb, and if you look at your body parts and they're turning super red, then just like if you've been in the sun too long and your body turns red, that's a sign that you may be taking it too far, and so then you can cover up. I sometimes, in the colder days, will take a little backpack with a sweatshirt or something in it that I can toss on if I feel like I'm getting too cold. And I love what Heidi says sometimes too. She goes, I'll go till I'm thinking, okay, I can't do any more. And I sometimes do just a little bit more because you can, right? But again, use your intuition, use your experience to be your guide in that. A face plunge is also a really fun place to start. I didn't mention this before, but we have this thing called the vagus nerve, which is like a neural highway that travels all through the body. And again, like your mitochondria, it can benefit from stimulation. So if you have, I should have done this because I have this whole space here, but if you have like a big bowl, just put some icy water in it and do a little bit of breathing before you submerge your face primarily, but do submerge far down enough to get the vagus nerve stimulated. That's going to improve your circulation, and it boosts your mood, and it does all kinds of stuff on that, again, cellular level. So it's the benefits of cold therapy with just a little bit of modest training, I would say. And you can, inhale and exhale, and breath work is kind of a thing that helps also with your mindset and your confidence and your ability, and kind of warning your body something special is coming up. And I think it helps me also help hold my breath longer in the water. So we can go over that more in the days ahead. But I just want to say, shiver walk is number one. I think face plunge is number two. Cold shower, I actually think is really hard. I would even put that after the ice hole in some ways, because there's something about submerging yourself in water and you're just surrounded by it that is challenging, but you can breathe and you can learn to be comfortable in the discomfort and use whatever techniques help you to manage, 1 to 3 minutes in the water. But when you're taking a shower, the water's hitting you in different places, and so it's just a little bit more challenging in my mind. But some people do start with, at the end of their regular shower, just turning the water to cold completely. And what I try to think is just pretend that, the hot water cut out and I've got to just deal, and I'll shriek a little bit, or I'll have fun, and I'll sometimes just rub myself too, because that gives a little friction, right? And I'll rotate around, and I'll try to have fun with it. But for me personally, I don't like the cold shower as much as the real plunges. And of course you can do bathtub plunges and just get in the ocean when you might not normally think to do that, but it really is exhilarating. I was just at the Outer Banks with some friends, and half of us on the little retreat or vacay that we didn't get in the water, but this one guy and I did, and it was just so fun. It's like, do you want to sit on the sidelines of life? Like, I don't, and I know you don't either, which is why you're here. You're like, okay, I don't even know if I really want to plunge, but I'm here and gonna try something new. And when you do something new, it is exhilarating, but it also builds new neural pathways in your brain, so you're kind of quicker on the uptake, and you're also, I didn't say this, you're kind of reverse aging, I would dare say. Like, I haven't yet done the big reveal with my age, but I am older than people think, but it's because of all of these things. It's my connection with nature, it's trying new things, it's challenging my body, it's building my resilience, and really revving my mitochondria, and it's lengthening my telomeres. And so I'll just explain quickly, because I didn't used to understand this, and now I do, so I want to share it with you. Telomeres, it's like a spool of thread that it kind of, let me see if I can get this right. Okay, it's like a spool of thread, and the longer your telomeres are, the longer you live. And, or maybe I shouldn't say spool of thread, maybe it's like a toilet paper roll. But the point is, when it starts to run out and the chromosomes get shorter, that's all you've got left. And I don't think they know much that will lengthen those telomeres, but I believe that cold therapy does. Is that right?
Yep.
Isn't that exciting? So you're lengthening your life and you're reverse aging because the cold boosts your metabolism, gives you the brown fat, which is what kids have. I mean, it's all these things. I just think it's miraculously wonderful. And so I'm going to just tell you one more cold therapy story of